Hello and welcome to State of the Economy. Today we have with us Dr. Seshadri Chari, convener of the Foreign Policy Cell of the BJP, who will speak to us on the new government's relationship with our neighbors, China and Southeast Asia, and even Japan, especially in view of the fact that this government is laying special emphasis to relationship with immediate South Asian neighbors, the broader Asian, Southeast Asian neighbors, as well as Japan. Welcome to our show, Dr. Seshadri Chari. Now tell us, what is the broad plan, as it were, of this new government, which has raised a lot of hopes about dramatically altering relations, especially with our South Asian neighbors, since Prime Minister Modi invited them for his swearing-in ceremony, and later even spoke about when India launched satellites into the space. They said there should be a SARC project around satellites, and there's also a lot of talk about Mr. Modi very keen on involving Japan, for instance, in building India's smart cities.
True.
Yeah. So, and generally the Look East policy which India has been following. Now, you've studied all these aspects. You just said you've given a note to Ms. Sushma Swaraj on Japan. Now, give us a broad idea of where this is heading.
India's engagement with Asia, Southeast Asia, and this region is not new. Of course, we are not here to go into the details of the engagement during the times of Ramayana, Mahabharata. That may be epic, that may be old.
The historical and cultural
also. The cultural context also is very old, spanning into more than thousands of years. But if you take the economic context also, even the pre-British, even the colonial times, we had relations with Burma. Burma was separated from India in 1935. Till then we had relationship. Indian currency was the currency from Ankara to Bali. And even today, if you take a cycle, you can keep on traveling from Ankara to Bali unhindered. There is a road. So this is the kind of thing. If you Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru mentions in his Discovery of India in 1944, he writes a letter wherein he says the economic and strategic importance of this region is very important, and he specifically says the inevitability of a larger role for India. India has to inevitably play a larger role in this region. This is pre-British. So you can imagine what kind of engagement that we should have got after 1947, 1950. But to tell you very frankly, see, the Bandung Conference, 1955. We were one of the architects of the non-aligned movement. So obviously we played an important role in bringing together a number of political establishments in Asia together. And that also paved the way for our economic engagement.
Some of that spirit still exists today?
Yeah, that spirit still exists in a way. We were the first to recognize Singapore in 1965. India was one of the first countries. So our engagement with this area has been for a long time. In around 1990s, two very important things happened. The first was the collapse of the USSR. So that paved the way for a different economic and political architecture of Asia. And then the second and most important element was the economic revival of various smaller countries in this region, and also China and India.
The Asian tigers, as it were.
The Asian tigers. The Asian tigers plus two. China, India. So this went on. That is why in 1992-93, the then Prime Minister Narasimha Rao made a strategic announcement of India turning to Look East policy. So that Look East policy changed the way we started looking at the Asian region. So this is the gamut that is there for the present Modi government to work.
To consolidate on, right?
Consolidate on the strengths of Asia.
So you're absolutely right. You've given us the momentum, the historical momentum in favor of this framework. Now, can you tell us the previous 5 years, especially UPA 2, saw very little movement on details, as it were. You know, whether it's with Bangladesh or whether it's with Pakistan, we missed out an opportunity on building infrastructure in, say, Sri Lanka,
Yeah,
the
true,
Hambam
very
Tota.
true, very true.
Now, even with Japan, for some reasons of their own, they were a bit slow in actually entering India, right?
Yeah.
So now, do you feel the time is ripe to take the economic engagement, trade engagement to a dramatically new level? And Mr. Modi's focus is on trade diplomacy
Exactly.
a lot.
See, even during the run-up to the elections, Mr. Narendra Modi had very categorically said that our conduct of foreign policy and trade will have to go together. You know, we were overburdened by the colonial past of conducting diplomacy independent of any other policy. And also, although the British came to India as traders and not as diplomats anyway, but that we didn't take that kind of a policy. We took a different policy altogether. And the socialist economic pattern that we followed strictly alienated, practically divorced diplomacy, foreign policy and trade.
But that was on the mend from the Narasimha Rao period to some extent, no?
But for the first person to probably mend it was Narasimha Rao. Narasimha Rao probably, besides the look east policy, the most important thing that he did was he changed the foreign policy discourse, which was basically Pakistan centric. From that he turned it to trade centric.
Moved beyond Pakistan.
Much far beyond Pakistan. He didn't go west, he looked east.
He looked east, yeah.
So that policy, if we had continued, of course the Vajpayee government, the first NDA government continued that policy. That is why we paid number of visits to Nepal, Sri Lanka, Malaysia, Singapore, and many other countries. Then there was a meeting in Bali also. So we started that policy. But in 2004, after the NDA left, when the UPA came, the UPA politically depended on the communist support. So the left parties were not very comfortable with this kind of a non-aligned policy or emphasis on free market trade and other things. So that probably overweighed on the UPA, the Congress especially, which they could jettison only in 2008-9 when the then Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh signed the Indo-US nuclear deal. After the Indo-US nuclear deal, we started again going back into the pro-West economic and political dispensation. So our policies again went westwards. So that was probably one time where we missed the boat again of engaging with Southeast Asian countries.
And China.
Especially China, Japan, you very rightly you mentioned Sri Lanka. I would even go to the extent of saying Nepal for that matter. Bangladesh, Singapore, Thailand.
So
Indonesia.
So you're right.
Indonesian economy is a booming economy, and we have no role to play in the Indonesian economy. Imagine there are more than 2,000 companies stationed, Indian companies stationed in Singapore who are raring to go. They are still existent. More than 2,000 countries. But we did nothing for that. That was the unfortunate part of it.
So tell me, you're right. Now, this needs correction, right? Now, in the context of, say, SAFTA, creating a larger free trade area in South Asia, it's important to get Pakistan in because it's the second largest economy, right? So how can you, and SAFTA has many other positives. If South Asian economies, they come together, work together, they can they can address many of the critical issues today, food security, energy security, all the riverine systems in South Asia which are linked, hydel power. You talking about in Nepal, potential of Nepal. Now, give us 2-3 priority things which the government can do to actually really increase trade within SAFTA to a completely new level. At the moment, SAFTA trade is not
true, very true.
Mentioning not worth mentioning in terms of scale or
trade
volume.
Does not take place only because you sign an agreement.
Exactly.
You have an agreement. We have a SEPA with Japan. comprehensive economic partnership agreement with Japan.
Yeah.
Where has the trade gone? For last 10 years we have not engaged in anything. The only best deal that Japan and India struck was the Maruti Suzuki deal.
That's probably the only big foreign investment deal.
That is 25 years old.
Yeah.
After that, Japan has not moved anywhere towards India. India has not moved anywhere towards Japan. Yeah. But we could have signed another technical agreement.
Except the industrial corridor where they are heavily invested in.
But they have heavily invested. But where even there, the infrastructure part of it, we have not developed. And then land acquisition of land is a very major problem in that.
Yeah.
The Japanese are facing a lot of problems. Okay. We have got a huge network of ports all over the country. Yeah. We have more than 55 areas where we can develop ports. But there are only 12 ports under the government of India, Port Trust of India.
Can you address South Asia first? We'll go to Japan later. Yeah.
Correct. So this is one thing. So if you want SAFTA to be a successful operational program,
free trade,
what you will have to do is really take over the reins and remove the barriers.
Yeah.
What happens is political dispensation also creates barriers. So for that you need to create a lot of confidence building measures and then approach these dispensations on trade. See, there is a great increasing realization within the political establishment in India and also the political establishment in Pakistan that there can be contentious issues between India and Pakistan, but both countries need to look into the trade possibilities because that is the only way of engaging between these two countries for the betterment of the people of the country.
Do you also believe that direct trade, official trade between India and Pakistan is about maybe 2.5-3 billion, but unofficial trade is $10 billion?
Unofficial trade, and most of these unofficial trade patterns work from Dubai. Work from some other countries. We are losing out on the taxation policies. We are losing out on the capital structures. We are losing out on also on number of other bilateral agreements that we can make.
Absolutely. We will take a small break here and come back to this question. Please don't go away and keep watching RSTV. Welcome back to State of the Economy. We are having a conversation with Dr. Seshadri Chari, foreign policy convener of the BJP. So you were talking about the things that we need to do immediately on a priority basis to fully exploit the potential of the South Asia free trade area, especially Pakistan, since Pakistan is a big piece. What all do you think we can do?
No, you see, let us remember one thing. Let us not again go back to the Pakistan-centric foreign policy or even the Pakistan-centric trade policy. Pakistan is very important, no doubt about it. But SAFTA is equally important for Pakistan also.
Yeah.
So I think Pakistan also should be made.
Which is a realization which has dawned on them now.
It is slowly dawning, but it's good. Okay. Anyway, but what we have to do is, if we improve our economy and our engagement with Southeast Asian countries, SAFTA will be a success. And on the basis of the success of SAFTA, Pakistan also can be included.
Okay.
But more importantly, Pakistan will be going west, but I am more concerned about the east. If you look into the east, we have some of the structures built over a period of time.
Okay.
See, for example, we have got what you call the SARC. We have got Indian Ocean Region Association for Regional Cooperation.
Yeah.
We have got BBI MTEC, that is Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation. We have got GMS, Ganga, Mekong, Swarnabhumi area, the entire Mekong region. If you look at this entire region, there is Ganga, Mekong region, and also Vietnam, Cambodia, and all these countries. So this region, which is very contiguous, starts as far back as Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Bhutan, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Myanmar. So this region itself can provide for nearly 10 to 12% of India's GDP. Our GDP can be something like 9 to 10% very easily if we start engaging with these countries, which we have missed out on all these 20 years. So this is why Narendra Modi insists on looking east.
And
not only just looking east, but providing the proper infrastructure. That is why he mentioned about the SARC satellite.
SARC satellite.
Obviously, the SARC satellite gives immense potential to deal with all these countries and create one conglomerate of scientific and technological development for the whole region.
Whole region, yeah. So there is a deeper thought.
There is a much further going into that. So, but for that we will have to do certain things.
And how does China play into this whole broad framework? China is, after all, also part of the Look East, no?
Obviously, China is a very, I mean, as we say, there are two large Asian tigers now, China and India. And the earlier government also was of the opinion, Dr. Manmohan Singh very practically said that we both have space to grow. So we still believe. I personally don't share the view of the Western, the pessimist view of the West, that China and India cannot engage together. I think the maximum economic engagement that China has with any other country in the world is with Japan. And the maximum number of contentious issues that China has is also with Japan.
Japan had actually invaded China and entered.
The past was different.
Beijing,
the present is also different. But still, they are the ones who are engaging the most. And if you see,
so this calls for pragmatism.
Absolutely,
that kind of pragmatism.
There is a little bit of international discourse on the fact that China and US relationship is also not very good at this moment, and that is one of the reasons why we should move towards China. But even if you see that, the economic engagement between China and US is also the maximum. So exactly. Therefore, these two things are different. If you engage economically with a country, you will be able to solve the problems is also not true. And the reverse also is also not true. That if you have contentious issues, you cannot deal with them economically is also not true. Therefore, I think India and China have a very great role to play in this entire region. We can look at each other as competitors. We can look at each other as contemporaries. We can look at each other as cooperative partners. I think it is better to deal with China on a partnership basis and still be able to resolve the contentious issues that we face between these countries. So this is the outlook that we can give. And if we are also forgetting one very important area, that is the Indian Ocean region. There are 55 countries in the Indian Ocean region, and India has to play a pivotal role in the Indian Ocean region.
Bang in the middle.
Also, it is bang in the middle. And then that is where we should be able to look at the whole region from a very different perspective.
Now, coming back to Look East and Japan, it is true that it's a Western narrative that China and India will necessarily go through a long period of contestation on various counts, including now there is this narrative about Indian Ocean and Pacific, the Chinese wanting to increasingly dominate the seas. But keep United States aside for a while. Doesn't Japan also look at China a bit suspiciously? And when we try to, for instance, we are trying to deepen relations with Japan. So Chinese are now asking, why are you doing so much with Japan? Why not with us? So how do you play off, balance Japan and China also in our calculation, in the larger Asian calculation? I'm talking about Asian, since you talk about Look East.
It's more economic than politics.
It's more.
I feel. You see, no country, not the least India, can offer any direct assistance either to China or to Japan as far as their border issues are concerned or the contentious issues.
No, you're right. It's economic.
So it's basically economic. But when it comes to economic issues, I think India has been able to deal with this kind of dichotomy for a long time. So we have been dealing with West Asian countries, and we have also been dealing with Israel at the same time. We have been dealing with Pakistan, and at the same time we have been dealing with Bangladesh also. We have been dealing with Nepal, and at the same time dealing with Bhutan also. We have built 3 hydroelectric projects for Bhutan. Taka, Tala, Chuka and Wangchu. All 3 built by India. And we are still ready to engage with China vis-a-vis Nepal. Nepal is sitting over 65,000 megawatts of power. Untapped. Nothing is happening.
So you are
And
suggesting that
China has huge capital inflow. China can influence as far as the capital formation is concerned. But remember one thing: for all the hydroelectricity that we produce in Nepal, not 1 megawatt can be transferred to China because the transportation is not possible. India is ultimately going to benefit. So what is wrong if we get money from anywhere in the world, put it in Nepal, construct 65,000 megawatts of power generation in Nepal, and the whole of western northern India benefits out of it. So look at the potential. Look at the potential if we are able to work and build this kind of an economic architecture. Where political dispensations can work together in spite of contentious problems among them.
So you're suggesting that the Chinese capital and Indian capital can work together in the region and create infrastructure.
Absolutely.
Like in Nepal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's no harm in doing that.
There is no harm in it. It's after all creating capital, and out of capital creation, you are actually creating economic opportunity for the local people and jobs. If you have this, you have reduced flashpoints considerably.
Yeah. Okay. So in a sense, you're saying that the South Asia or the SAFTA region, in some ways, can be a shared space also among the bigger Asian economic powers.
Absolutely. The trade architecture in this region has developed to such an extent that if we will have to look into the European Union model for that. Although there can be two opinions on that, whether the European model is a successful model or it's a failed model and all that. But success or failure doesn't depend on what we did last year or what we are doing today.
I think over a longer horizon, it is a successful model.
It has to be seen in the context of 10 to 20 years. So if you take it decades preceding the formation of European Union and the decades succeeding the formation of European Union,
there was a positive movement.
There is a huge difference. Similarly, I think there can be some sort of regional forums. In fact, this is the only region which has got the maximum number of forums.
Sure.
But still, we have scope to improve on all the regional forums.
So essentially, you're also suggesting that India can deepen its engagement simultaneously with China and Japan. So if China wants to say invest, let's say $100 billion in Indian infrastructure, you take that. Now, Ms. Sitharaman was there, Nirmala Sitharaman in China recently. They expressed interest in investing big money in special economic zones. You can do that also, right?
See, I was in Japan last month, and the Japanese establishment is looking forward to come and engage with India on a greater note. And they are also interested in SEZ. They are also interested in technical collaboration. But what we have been emphasizing, at least for some time now, and the BJP is very conscious of the fact that we don't want to convert India into another market for other countries. Rather, we want to engage economically with all these areas, but strengthen our own production mechanism, strengthen our employment market, and also technologically improve our standards.
Technology.
So that is how the quality of life can improve.
Are you also suggesting in your larger Asian cooperation theory that this region can also evolve its own through research, joint research, its own appropriate technology that is suited to this part of the world as opposed to the West?
See, industrial research, agriculture research. These two are the areas where we can do a lot. And agriculture research, if you see, Japan has done a lot of agriculture research. Some of the Southeast Asian countries are very good in agriculture. For example, Malaysia has done excellent research in palm oil, which we lack.
Even China has a lot of agricultural research.
China has done a lot of agricultural research. China has done a lot of agricultural research on even rubber. And if you are able to bring some of those agricultural research outputs into India, you look at the amount of benefit that states like Kerala can get, which is the largest rubber producing area. So these are all the potential that we have as far as research is concerned, and there could be a sort of a combined research mechanism also of sharing. And because the Eastern idea has never been keeping knowledge to the self. It has always been propagating.
So the whole idea of Asian economic cooperation is waiting to be exploited. Thank you very
So
much.
therefore, what I see, what I feel is, we have to improve the rail link, the road link, and the sea link.
All the infrastructure.
And the basic philosophy of the BJP government is, give more, get more.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Seshadri Chari, for sharing these insights with us. That's all we have in this edition of State of the Economy. We'll be back with you next week. Thanks for watching.